So we have been on a little adventure even to start this video, and that's where I'm going to jump in. So, um, just to hit record has been a 10-minute process because technology is challenging the effort to even record this conversation. And I believe, and I know it's because the power, the potency, and the light in it is challenged in some way by a force that maybe doesn't want a conversation this beautiful, this powerful, this faith-filled to get somewhere, but we will overcome. And I'm here with Ryan Dopps, which is one of my good friends and one of the people that we are doing this whole thing for, and the husband to Dr. Denise Dopps. And so we just want to dive into a very real conversation today about what life has been like for them. So for some context, if I say, who are you? And tell us a little bit about your family, where would we start?
I'm 6'4", and I'm not this short. This is the shortest I've ever been.
I'm standing, he's sitting.
But that's okay. That's okay. Man, I'm married to the most beautiful person I've ever met, inside and out. And, watching these last 3 years unfold has been just this gut-wrenching, beautiful experience that shows what human beings are capable of, because she has just dug her heels in and said, I'm not going down like this, and done everything that she can. And she's doing everything that she can. And it's just, it's amazing. So we're both chiros. I just celebrated 17 years in practice, which that's the wisdom poking through right there on the gray on the beard. I love what I do. I know we all do. And, we've got 3 beautiful kids. We've got Eli, who's 13, and then Hadley and Lucy, 10 and 8. And they're little chiropractic kids, and we get to raise them. And as chiropractors, we always see kids in the office, and when they start acting crazy after an adjustment or whatever, I always tell the parents, I'm like, this is what you're bringing them for, is that they get to express life fully. And if that energy's been bottled up, like, of course they're going to have moments where they're trying to get it out and get and regulate, and raising kids with our philosophy it's such a blessing. Chiro kid myself, so maybe I can see some of that and appreciate what it is, but it's beautiful. So what I will start with gratitude, of course, right? Because this is amazing what you've done. Everybody who's contributed it blows me away what Devin's done in such a short period of time. We started with conversations that felt like yesterday that just got this thing moving, so tons of gratitude for you and to you watching and participating, and to those who came before and spoke before, and paved the way. It's just, a lot of gratitude. Thank you for what you're doing.
Well, and I know you've had this, and I know anyone out there who has had someone they just adore go through something unthinkable. It's, what can I do? I mean, I bet you get that question all the time when the tough news hits, when the cancer diagnosis hits, when the XYZ, what can I do? And so many of us want to help. And this is one of those callings where I feel like, Innate said, what can I do? Right? Like, we are not alone in going through these journeys, and who could this serve, by pouring it out. And you and Denise, so I'm looking over our shoulder, and there's a poster from the big idea that they spoke at in 2019, and you're up on the stage and it's vibrant. Her and I had gone and volunteered at Tony Robbins, and, had time of our lives. And then shortly thereafter comes this moment of like, something's not right. And your whole lives change.
We spoke at the big idea in September. I think the week after, if not even that same week, we left on a trip with the International Chiropractic Association. We were ambassadors for the ICA to China. We went to China, and as we came home, like you said, it all switched. And she was diagnosed in January of 2020. And I mean, it was that short of a time period, on top of COVID, on top of everything else. I kind of wonder if I found the wormhole in China to make it just go, let's just hop to an alternate reality and see how you handle everything.
World flipped on its head.
100%.
Because it did.
Oh, it has.
Yeah.
So,
And so we get these things that hit us, right? And we're all human and we grow up in the world, but we don't think like the world, right? And you guys are very rooted in God, very rooted in your faith.
Yeah.
And so here comes, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah.
Now we have all these decisions to make. Here's this information, here's this diagnosis, here's this prognosis, and what they're speaking at you. Talk to us about how you guys fielded the fear, the doubt, and the decisions that hit you in the beginning.
Again, I'm gonna tip my hat to Denise, because in the beginning, even with a solid chiropractic philosophy, right, even with ADIO literally tattooed on my body, right, I mean, even with that, it still is this oh shit moment of like, what do we do, right? What does the other side have? Like, I can talk all day that, that chiropractic is what it is, because I believe it. I've seen it, right? You've seen it. We've witnessed the miracles. We've witnessed the things. But when it's, I don't like the word your term, but when it comes to you, it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do here? And Denise has been so strong. She's been so strong. Even my little sister, and I love her, but as soon as Denise got diagnosed, she's like, I'm ordering you this t-shirt, right? And it's the big fuck cancer, right? And and I grab him like, yeah, F cancer, right? And all this. Right. And Denise is like, she's like, whoa, dude, because this is me. This is my body. Let's be chiropractors. Let's figure out, right, what's causing it. And that was huge. Yeah. Because even in the midst of like the worst news you can get, she still clung to our philosophy to say, like, the hidden messages in water, right? If I can speak to the water and it changes the frequency and the vibration and the pattern, what does fuck cancer say when it's my cellular response that's shifted into a protective mechanism? What does that tell your innate and who you are? What conflicting data does that give, right? When we're supposed to be vibrant, we're supposed to be healthy, and we're supposed to stay positive and encouraging, but then you run around with this label on that is saying, I'm broken, I can't heal, I've got major malfunction, and you own it,
And I got a chance to go on some trips with her, and being in the space, and this type of conversation brought me in the middle of COVID, as I was waging war against the machine and the everything that was happening, and a part of the health freedom movement. And I'm proud of everything, but I was catching in myself all this negativity and all this like war. It's human condition when we fear something to wage a war against it. And you see war on cancer, you see all these big corporations that profit off of that thing we do. Right. And yet the spaces that Denise and I got to go into, and then I know you have Joe Dispenza, Peru, and some of these like that say, Dr. Zach Bush, that say, this, you're not at war with something out there. These are your cells. This is, how do we make peace? If we root that question, how do we make peace in this process? How do we bring healing to it? As I just named off a few, you guys have left no stone unturned. So down the Mayo path, in the conventional ways, but also way outside the box. Yeah. Can you talk about what you feel like have been most pivotal over these years?
Man, definitely a solid foundation, and with a relationship with the creator, right? I mean, that's I feel like that's the number one thing on my end. I imagine it's the same on hers, right? But it's the underlying philosophy that we have, that the power that made the body heals the body, right? And we've said it, you've probably said it 100 times, right? There's a time and place, right? And so we're like, man, if this isn't the place, or the time, when is it? Surely not. I mean, maybe it's when I've got a broken arm, or if I get a gunshot wound, but like, this might just be one of those. And so we both committed to say, like, let's leave no stone unturned. Let's have no regrets, and let's just go for all of it. And if we're leaning into it and feel like it's spirit led, then let's go there. Yeah. And I believe that all of it has. I don't think that we've made any bad choices with this, and I think that as chiropractors, sometimes it's easy to get our guard up and be like, well, I'm not going to turn to their opinion. We talked about this before in our technology, in our tech difficulties, but life saying for me, right, just goes back to BJ, that medicine is the study of disease and the things that cause a person to die. chiropractic is the study of health and the things that cause a person to live.
Mm.
I've loved that for a long time, right?
Yeah.
I've loved that for a long time. And as that being my framework, as we step into these offices of these different practitioners, of these different specialists, of these different healing circles, of these different things, man, we've got something great with that. You know, we've got something great with that, because it allows us to not get stuck on the physical and it allows us not to get hung up on the diagnosis.
Right.
I mean, the diagnosis is huge, and I don't want to disrespect that by any means, but like, it allows us to look at like, okay, they're focused on these things that aren't going well inside, but like, we know how to shift that, you know, through nutrition and through chiropractic and through all of these things, through modalities, through mental, through all of it, you know? So the things that I think have been most pivotal, right, are just the mindset things, the things that cause her to shift and think. That's where I've seen the most growth in her, right, is when she's challenged to confront it, and not be a victim, which Denise has never really had she's never had a victim mentality, you know.
No, I've never seen it. Not in any.
She's always been strong. And, you know, right before we got married, my grandfather was passing, and we went to the hospital to see him. And this is one of my dearest memories of her, man. He's laid up, he's passing, right? And I'm in there talking to him, and I'm selfishly saying, what pearls can I take from you right now? Right? What knowledge is my grandfather going to impart on me right now so that my life can be better? And she just looked at him and she's like, how are your feet doing? How are your legs? You know, he's like, well, they're doing okay. And she's like, would you mind if I rubbed them? Right. And it was a Jesus washing the feet moment, you know? So, if you're somewhere, Grandpa, I love you, right? She pulled that blanket up, and these were the driest, crustiest legs I've ever seen in my life. He's 94, right?
Right.
And I don't think he moisturized since he was about 74, right? So, and she just sat there with love in her eyes and looked that man straight in his eyes. And she's been around 4 years at this point. You know what I mean? And she's just digging in and just serving. And oh, damn, that was awesome. You know, and that's her, right? So not a victim, not a person that's like, I'm too good for that. Things that have kept her mindset strong, and just her strength and conviction in knowing who she is, and that she's bigger than this. I don't know if that's an answer.
No, it is. And there's probably a lot to list, and we'll share some of the links and the Joe Dispenza meditations and the Tijuana Mexicos that are coming up. And because it's inevitable. I heard a statistic yesterday that it's 1 in 2, right, of people with cancer, you know, and where are we headed, right? We live in a toxic world.
Right.
So how do we reframe that? You know, is it possible? And Dr. Zach Bush unpacks this really well, of like that, or Melissa Sell with German New Medicine, where it's as if the common cold, it's as natural a response to environment, to thoughts, traumas, and toxins as a cold. And yet we've been, it can, if left, it can have fatal consequences. And yet she has just leaned in spite of any prognosis. I will never forget, when she came back from Zach that first time and shared that he said, you've got to look at, the trajectory of your life. And if this is what has made you sick, you need to go to Hawaii for, get out of here, go change the trajectory of your life. And so here's this woman given all this heavy stuff. And she's like, I'm going to go to Hawaii. Would you like to go?
So let me interject. That was one of the most awkward moments in my life, because he says that to her, right? And then looks at me and he's like, and you need to figure a way to make it happen. Okay, cool. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. But just getting to Zach was a miracle in itself. And I'll tell you this, that there's been so many things that have been miraculous about this that shouldn't happen. He was on a 1.5-year wait list, right? And I called, and the lady's like, it's so crazy you called, because right before this I had a cancellation for a 1.5 weeks from now. Do you want it? I'm like, like, that's not,
no, you can't make that up.
You can say it's happenstance or whatever, but that is God's hand moving in our life. And I think that's the thing to me that's been most profound, is that in the midst of all of this, there is still mercy. Yeah.
I want to come back to Hawaii, but I also want to go where you just went, of being in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
So as somebody, I would, I think by nature we go, how we find comparisons. And so what I went through with my mom, it pales in comparison to what you guys have been through. And I understand sitting in the passenger seat when doctors walk in and say, just very bluntly and coldly, here is your death sentence and here is all the bad news. Have a good day. We'll get you scheduled for next time, and walk out. And you're left sitting next to this person that you love more than anything going, what in the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And then you pick up the pieces. And for you, it's not only being the pillar in sickness and in health, standing next to this woman and helping make these decisions, but you're also holding down practice. And you're also like, not only like finding a way, but making a way. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about you and what you've been through these last few years.
Well, every time it's been a big drop of information, right, through doctors. Let's get this straight. It's always me bawling and her being like, we're going to be fine. It's good. We'll get this taken care of, because she's not a victim and she's so damn strong. And so before I act like I've done all this heavy lifting and all of that, just know that it's strength of the couple, I think, that is so strong, right? Is that we have this bond that, I've thought a lot about, like, something as simple as like marriage vows, right? I mean, we've all got up there and said, in sickness and in health, or richer and in poorer, right? I mean, I've made some financial moves that have been great, or we have, and then I've made some that have been really, really shitty, right? And she's there for me, she's there with me. This is another one of those things. Unfortunately, it's not if I went to the casino and put it all on black right now, you'd be like, you're a dumbass. I see it, and I'm getting out of here. And I don't blame people for doing that, right? Because you're a dumbass. She didn't do anything to deserve this, And I think that's been the biggest thing to me, is how, and I just use that phrase, that God's mercy has just shown up. Because when it first came down, it was very easy. We've always led a wellness life, right? We've always had a diet that's just a little bit different. We've always had practices that are a little bit more, and I'm not comparison, there's no comparison to anything, but even in a chiropractic circle, like, there's a lot of crap that's been talked on, on us, just because we've held the line of, we did a plant-based, not a vegan thing. I got a leather belt on, like, I'm good, right? But like, because it's better, right?
Yeah. And Judson gave nod to this, where he's like, here's this couple that's doing all the things right.
Yeah.
And yet, bam.
So it either comes down to it's all bullshit and none of it works, which is really tough when you invest your entire life into it, right? It's really tough. Or that's God's mercy showing up before I even knew I needed it, right? And saying, I've got you, bro. Like, yeah, you are going to be a chiropractor, and your mindset is going to be this, and you're going to meet this amazing person. And I've seen it all in the future, and you need each other, and she needs you, and you need her, and these kids need you, and this interview is going to happen. And what else is it, right? What else is it? And if it's not that, like, man, I don't want a world that it's not that, right?
Born for such a time as this. Right.
Born for such a time as this, right?
Yeah.
I've got a life saying tattooed on my chest: heed the call, right? Heed the call is so damn important to me, because we get into these, especially as a chiropractor, like, you're changing people's lives, you're blowing up your life, you're doing all of these amazing things, and it's so easy to be like, yep, God wants me to have that boat and that house, right? He wants me to have these things because these are blessings coming to me. So why can't I be abundant and pass these things on? But man, that's not the call of your life.
Yeah.
Right. Call of your life is not, it's not a Ferrari. You know what I mean? The call of your life is being able to accept the damn mission, right? And not fucking wuss out, right? And that's, I know that's maybe a little blunt, but it's to see that your purpose is bigger. And my purpose is to serve her through this period so that she can get well,
And you shared that verse with me a few weeks ago that was a catalyst of sorts, because I called you and said, okay, I got to do something. I'm like going crazy watching this train like derail for Hillary and everything that the Rowenhorst family was going through. And then you guys, coming up against another, tough decision here, getting ready to pack up and go to Tijuana. And you shared a verse with me and you're like, but there's also the part that nobody really talks about. There's this back half that I think really like hits the chiropractic heart. Can you speak it into?
So it's Genesis, right? It's Genesis 50:20. And this is if you're not familiar, you have Abraham, you have Isaac, you have Jacob, and Jacob's son Joseph, right? We've all heard of Joseph in the amazing coat. Gets sold by his brothers into slavery, goes to Egypt, finds favor as a slave in the house of Potiphar, right? Potiphar's wife accuses him of, sexual harassment, rape, something, right? He gets thrown in jail, left in jail to rot, interprets some dreams for a person in jail, and that puts him in front of Pharaoh, answers Pharaoh's thing, saves the land from famine, right? Not just Egypt, but like the land, right? All these other countries are coming in getting grain. And at this point, Joseph's brothers come back in and they're begging for supplies, right? And Joseph kept it quiet on who he was, and he tested them and had them bring his father, and then he reveals it, right? And this is Genesis 50:20, where they're like, whoa, we treated you horrible. We ruined your life. We blew your life up. Why do you have mercy on us right now, right? And what it says is that what we know is that what you meant for evil, God used for good, right? That's the one you're going to find on the plaque at Hobby Lobby, right? But it's that comma that's the next one that just rocked me, because it says what you meant for evil, God can use for good, so that we can bless a nation, right? And as chiropractors, like we get to hold this space of turning the power back onto people, right? And if we're not taking care of ourselves, and not that Denise wasn't, right? Because we were doing the best we could do. We were doing everything we knew, everything. But it's like, how important is it that we keep the chiropractor adjusted, right? And that we stay on a path and a trajectory that's purposeful and intentional, because at that level, that just amplifies our message so that we can serve and help more people. And that's what this, to me, that's what the power that what you're doing here is that we get to adjust ourselves. We get to adjust the adjuster, right? And make these corrections and shift that heart and that mindset to say, like, shit's gonna come. Yeah. But inevitable. Are you who you say you are?
When it hits the fan. Are you who you say you are? And can you trust that in that line to bless a nation? Like, will you be brave enough in some instances to be forged in that fire and literally carved out? Yeah. And whether that greater good in the nation is an actual nation or a profession of chiropractic,
your family at home,
your son, your daughters, like what they are witnessing, you taking them to Tijuana, like that will change who they are forever.
I think about that a lot. It's just like, man, what, the victim side of it is, and I say this to my kids all the time, like, guys, we didn't plan this. Like this wasn't part of the plan. And then with empathy, it's like, I didn't go through this at your age. So I don't even freaking know how to do this right now. Right. I don't know how to, I don't know where you're at. I can't say this. I can tell you that I took 7th grade math and it was fun. And it also sucked really bad. Right. But like, I can see that, but
I'd rather help you with your homework than whatever.
I don't know how to process this and I'm going through it. And so it's allowed us to have grace for everybody. Right. And it's allowed us to have, to hold space that it's like, man, if they're not there, we just need to keep loving them through it. And, Lucy, our little 8-year-old, she's so amazing. You got to think 3 years, this is half of her life. Right. And she would come up and she'd be like, hey, Mom, Denise was in the early stages. We were trying chemotherapy and those things. She's feeling like crap, she's like, does cancer like loud noises? And Denise is like, oh no, cancer hates loud noises. She's like, oh, okay. And into the kitchen she'd go and come back with a pot and a pan and just banging some shit, and she's just doing what she can, right? Doing what she can to help her mom and just to lift her spirits. And, in the midst of it, you're like, man, that's noise. But it's her way to help. It's her way to serve. And these little kids are seeing it happen. And, my phrase I've been telling them lately because of Tijuana, and I referenced it a few times, is it's a miracle in motion. We're just going to go with that because that's, like at the end of the day, it's better than it not being, right? Let's remove everything else. And it's like, I can believe that it's a miracle in motion because I 100% do. And I feel it in my core. And I could talk to you for hours about the way that God's shown up through this whole thing. Yeah. And you started something that at the beginning that, and I can't remember what it was, but, early on, somebody dropped on me that like, God hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now, and I feel like this is more true now than ever.
you and I, we share the expect miracles, right? Like you expect miracles. It's like the most like foundational, duh, yes, love it. But you and I also shared a conversation maybe a year ago. Time is so relative at this point. But we have to accept miracles, yeah. And there's had to be a lot of acceptance. And this is in part a fundraiser to help get you to Tijuana. This was expedited. But there were some brothers in chiropractic. There were some people that have shown up and said, "Oh, you need to go now.
Yeah.
Let us help." So it's not just like, "Oh, God's going to come down and move the mountain."
Right.
No, sometimes we have to say like, "I need a mountain to move."
Yeah.
And then allow people into our lives who literally help do that and feel worthy to receive it. Can you?
That verse is important, right? It's like I'm just preaching here. Matthew 17, like it's 20,
we need it.
24, 40, it's somewhere in there. It's in Matthew, it's in Mark. It's pivotal, right? It's the faith the size of a mustard seed. You can tell a mountain to move and it will move into the ocean, right? And so what you just said, I hadn't conceptualized that yet, that it's so many times we just sit like, well, if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen, right? But that's not what the verse says. The verse says, if you tell a mountain, so there's action implied, right? There's action implied. And I think that's speaking it into existence. That's making the energy in I don't want to say it, like it's putting action to beliefs, right? That's putting your money where your mouth is. And I don't mean that in this sense, but maybe it does. I don't know, because there were people that showed up, like you said, that within 8 hours we had what we needed to get there. And that was something old mentor of mine used to say, and I don't know the reference for this one, but it's not by might or not by power, but through the Holy Spirit that things happen. And if we looked at it, I've been trying to squirrel away cash since about February, right? And it was about 50% of the way there. I thought I was doing good. I'm making it happen. I'm pinching and putting it where I can. But when it's my might and my power, here's 3 months, and we're staring at testing a week ago today that was as big of a Mack truck as the initial one was, right? And so something has to happen. But Wednesday, Thursday, people were already messaging me before we knew the news, before the news was even coming. People were already putting into motion for us to do this. And so when the diagnosis hit, right, when the new news hit last week of growth in the abdomen, not just in the colon where it started, but in the abdomen, compressing the colon, compromising literally a time bomb of suffocation. God was already there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was already moving in it. So much so that when she looks at me and she's like, what are we going to do? They wanted to remove her whole colon on Sunday, right? And she looked that doctor in the face, and this is my wife. This is the woman that I love. She goes, now, are there any conservative options that we can approach? And the guy's like, yeah, I mean, you could essentially just go on a juice diet and like make sure everything's real soft going through and all that. And she's like, okay, I think that's the option I'm going to choose, right?
And rip out my insides or juice diet.
Right? And he leaves the room and she's like, I'm not having him take my colon. That's my immune system. What is it? How am I healing from this if I don't have that? You know, me, right? Like, I'm like, yeah. You want to take mine too? Because let's do this thing. If this is going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can see how people get swept up.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So easy.
Yeah.
So easy. And she's like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, wow. Now there's maybe some humor, and I don't know. I find this just, I draw joy from this. So the nurse comes in and she's like, well, you're prepped for surgery. You ready essentially? Right. And Denise is like, oh no, we're going to do something different. Right. And, you know, the doctor was like, he was on board with it. So she's like, okay, I'll go get your AMA, right? And Denise is like, well, hold on. If I sign an AMA, what does that do? And she's like, oh, well, you know, essentially like insurance isn't going to cover this emergency room visit, this 2 a.m. rush that we had to do. And this is 5 p.m. So this is all these hours, right? 13 hours of testing and all this stuff. She's like, yeah, they'll deny the whole claim. And Denise is like, in the midst of this gut-wrenching pain and this horrible weight that just hit her, she's got the foresight to say, oh, no, you need to go back to him and talk to him, right? Because he released me and I am going with his advice, right? Right? I'm just like, I love you. You're so fucking smart.
Steadiness and grace and like trusting your intuition, but also like standing in that certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. In like in the eye of the storm.
In the eye of the storm.
And that is Denise.
There's peace.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is sound baths and, you know, journeys around the world and prayer and ukulele and support.
Doing the work. It's doing the work in the moment.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We talked about this before we started, that it's easy to want to do the work after the storm has passed. Right. Like our midwife told us, like when we were having kids, she's like, said something about like, we came in and we're like, well, how soon do you wait to have a kid? The next one, like, what do you think the right timeline is? Being all analytical about it. And she goes, well, you never rebuild your house in the midst of a hurricane. Right.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense, right? When you're in the first 3 months, when you have no sleep, you're not like, whoa, I can't wait to get another one of these. Yeah. You know, you're like, you get about 2 years in and you're like, wait a minute, those things are adorable. I want another one, you know? And then the hurricane comes back and it's chaos for a minute, but it settles down, and then you plan again and you're like, man, we put ourselves through this, you know, 3 times, right? Yeah. However many times, you know, it's like, it's amazing. And so in the midst of the storm, she had peace and she had perseverance and self-control. And then she leaves and she's like, so what's next? You know, and I was like, dude, we've got everything. We'll go to Mexico tomorrow. You know, I've already talked to the doctors there. I've already got, and it's all taken care of. We just have to get there. I go, I need you to get, this was some of the, I think the motivation going through it. I was like, I need you to get through this so that we can get to that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so Mexico is going to be a pivotal thing. I know it is. Yeah. Because there's been too many forces already working for good. Right. Yeah. We could jam for hours. You got places to be. We got stuff to do. And that's the beauty of friendship and technology, where we can time capsule these conversations, and it's a ... because I know that we both believe this is just the next step. Yeah. This is just the next phase of the journey. And you guys will, I am holding space that Denise will be the next person that I get to sit beside here and have this conversation with. And I'm just grateful for your vulnerability and your strength as a couple. One, what can we pray for you? Well, travel mercies, right? Because we got some adventures to set out on, right? We'll leave for Tijuana on Sunday. Taking the kids, we're down there for 3 weeks. You know, for us is her peace, right? It's for the doctor's insight and the revelation there that they're gonna see what they need to see, right? It's the next steps. Yeah. You know, I think that's been my whole personal prayer journey through this is wisdom, and not, I mean, base hits are fantastic, right? Rarely are games won through grand slams, right? So praying for base hits and that next door and that next door and that next door. Yeah. You know, don't get me wrong, I'll take a grand slam right now, right? Right. But asking it is given. Yeah. What would you speak? Because statistically, again, someone out there, whether it's cancer or it's a financial blow or marital or practice, like adjustors, chiropractic assisted, like we're human. What would you speak, given what seeds of strength have been sown into you? What would you speak into the people who need to hear it today? Yeah. God hasn't brought you this far to abandon you, right? And that you have a heavenly Father that loves you. And man, I can tell you that the amount of times that he's shown up, he's had his hand on things. It's like in practice, like when you first start, a skeptic comes in and it's like, whoa, man, I don't know how to handle that, right? Somebody comes in skeptical to you, your confidence and understanding of who you are has no power. Like that has so much power, they will not shake you, right? There's no amount of negativity that's going to buck you off your course. And I feel the same with this, you know, is that, you know, God loves you and you're important. Your body's able to heal. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, all of the things, right? I mean, maybe take a field trip to Hobby Lobby and just walk down and understand it and soak it in, right? And believe it. And those words carry so much power. Yeah. And I saw Judson wrote on your wall, like healed, right? Like, and the way we see Denise matters because in those moments of doubt, we get to show up and shine the light in the dark. That's right. That's right. Your support system, this community right here, the DE community, the Tim Young, all of it, all the communities are so important. Find people that you love, that you resonate with, and do life with them, because when push comes to shove, man, they show up. you know, people show up. You're showing up right now.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate what you're doing. This is phenomenal. And I'm so excited to watch all of these. You've shown up by sticking through these interviews. There's so much energy with this. And so just hold that space for time to happen. Your body has an ability to heal that we've been conned out of believing. Right. Your mind has an ability to process that we've been conned out of believing, but we're amazing.
Yeah.
Human beings are amazing.
Yeah. And take these moments to go love on your loved one. You know, when we see couples in a storm, and I can be upset with Joey for 100 different things because he's a child in a man's body.
Right.
Love him. But I come home and I go, how could I be anything but madly in love with you? And we don't wait for those moments to relish your babies and your husbands and your moms and your dad. The people love your people, because it shouldn't take a storm to shove us into that. But I'm grateful for you know, my friends and my teachers like you and Denise, who have taken me into the eye of the hurricane alongside her and alongside you, to remind me of what this is.
You've said for years before Big Idea, before a lot, we served on the KCA together a decade ago, and you kept telling me, you're like, I always feel a magnetism for you and Joey and Denise and I that we need to do something. And we thought it was through, you know, the KCA, the association. We thought it was through a lot of different things, and we just kept bumping into each other. And as I saw the transformation that you helped her with in Hawaii, and going out to Zach Bush and all of these things, I mean, it's like, heed the call, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
God gives us our people. So keep your heart open, friends, and we will keep you posted. So thank you for what you're pouring in, and let's love them up and keep them on our hearts. So ...
Love and appreciate
thank you for your time.